We didn't accomplish our main goal, what we wanted, but this season's not over. There's still a lot of racing left, and that's what we do, is race.
From a schedule standpoint, I love the variety. I think you have to have the variety in our playoffs because that's what our season is. Our season has a complete variety of different styles of racetracks, and it rewards a different style of driver. And to have a complete champion in NASCAR, you at least have to be good at every type of racetrack.
You know, you never know when you're just going to have an off weekend.
I've kind of gotten the ability to have the platform that I want, and it is my platform, and I can speak to whatever I feel like talking about.
We were in the mix, and it makes it a lot more fun when you're in the mix than you are just, struggling and trying to figure out what direction to go.
Yeah, it's tough, and sorry for being bouncy, the roads here. I think we have, the all-you-can-eat buffet every single day of the week. People are going to get tired of it, right? So if it's a special thing, I think people get more excited for it.
Hi, Bo!
Raise your hand up so she can see it. There you go.
So even as a I think it was,
all right. Thanks, buddy.
Very head-scratching why at the beginning all four of us just went instantly straight to the back. We just really struggled.
Welcome on to the Backstretch. I am News 5's Heather Williams, and NASCAR is in my backyard almost literally this weekend as it takes on the high banks of the Bristol Motor Speedway. I live about 4 miles from the track, so it's going to be a nice, easy commute to work for me over the weekend here at Bristol. And what an exciting weekend it'll be. Second race of the playoffs for the trucks on Thursday. First final race of the regular season for the Xfinity drivers on Friday. And then, of course, the elimination of the first round of the Cup Series drivers on Saturday. And Saturday's race is going to be fascinating because, come on, you did not have Austin Cindric third in the points heading into Bristol. I don't care who you are. But here we are. And Denny Hamlin is on the outside looking in. Now, the good news for Hamlin is that he is coming to Bristol. Maybe his best track, maybe his favorite track. He started to slowly creep up there, put his name up there against Kyle Busch and Kurt Busch and Rusty Wallace as far as some of the best to ever drive on the high bank. So I think if you asked Denny if there was a track he could pick that he had to be racing to keep his season alive, I think he'd probably pick Bristol. From what I've seen and heard out there floating around from this week, he feels pretty confident coming into this weekend. Coming up on the show today, we are, of course, going to have our crew chief, Chris Carrier. His Truck Series team is running this weekend at Bristol. He's been running this track for 30 years. There's nobody better to talk about Bristol than Chris Carrier. Then we will also have the aforementioned Mr. Austin Cindric as our guest. Austin has had the best average finish over these first 2 rounds of the playoffs. He's the only driver to finish in the top 10 in both races. He's in a pretty good position. So we're going to talk to him about what's clicked for him, why he's having such a good season, why Penske is so good when the playoffs come around. It's going to be a fun conversation. So let's get going. Joining us now is our crew chief, Chris Carrier, who's also the crew chief of the number 75 Food Country truck in the Craftsman Truck Series. Chris Buescher out-battled SVG for the win at Watkins Glen, giving a non-playoff driver a win in the postseason. So, Chris Carrier, will we see more of that in these playoffs?
Possibly so, Heather. There's several guys who were teams that were, this close and that kind of figured on, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be in that playoff. And I respect and admire Chris Buescher and his team for having that resilience, that just that strength of team to say, okay, we didn't accomplish our main goal, what we wanted, but this season's not over. There's still a lot of racing left, and that's what we do, is race. And when we race, we try to win. We try to beat everybody else. Really, really strong performance by that guy and his team yesterday, and I was proud of them. And there's other guys, other teams that are right there, and they're going to be encouraged by seeing this. They're going to say, we want to do that too. Okay, the playoff guys are going to dominate the media, the press. They're going to get most of the attention, but we're not done this year. There's a lot of good race teams with good race drivers left that aren't in that playoff picture, but that doesn't mean that they're not capable of winning races. And they want to show that. They want to prove that They want to have that momentum going into the off season, and I don't think you've seen the last of this. I think I'm thinking about Bubba Wallace going into Talladega. We know how good that whole team, that whole company is, and he is on Speedway racing, for instance. There's others there, and it's so competitive that top 25, 28 teams are capable of winning races, and there's only 16 in the playoffs. So that leaves a lot of potential for somebody.
Well, speaking of those playoff drivers, they did not have a good day at the Glen. Right now, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, and Martin Truex Jr. are 3 of the 4 drivers on the wrong side of the playoff bubble. So what is their mindset going into Bristol?
Well, I hate to say that these teams are on the panic button, but they're kind of on the panic button. My first, the one closest to the bubble was Denny Hamlin, and we know how good Denny Hamlin can be at Bristol. He won the spring race. He's won other races in the past at Bristol. He's been very good there. They have to have a win or take all. Got to win, no doubt about it. Throw the home run at it, and they are capable of hitting that home run at Bristol. We know that. So, and there's guys behind him like Martin Truex. I mean, the same thing. There's more people there, and then there's a couple there that's right on that cut line where if somebody like Denny wins the race and somebody else has a really good day, finishes second, third, fourth, something like that, there's people right above that cut line that we expected to be in deep into the playoffs that might not get in. There's going to be some favorites that are not going to be in the second round of these playoffs. It's not all of them can make it, and there's some guys that we were probably going to count out pretty quick for the second round that are going to make it, particularly Austin Cindric.
I was going to say, he's looking really good.
He looks pretty good.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see what happens here.
Yes,
so, the last time we were in Bristol, tire wear was the big topic. Will we see more of that this weekend? And what is the key to conquering Bristol?
Well, the tire situation and the sealer situation and the fact that it's a night race, I think it's just, I don't know what to expect. I'll be quite honest with you. It's now a night race instead of a daytime race in the spring when it was really cool weather. Is the conditions for this year going to be any better for better tire wear versus the spring race? That's the question. That's the elephant in the room, and I don't know if anybody really knows the answer to that.
And the question also, the PJ1 versus the resin. When they had the tire tests out there in July, they talked about the PJ1 being better than the resin.
Yep.
And
it's more grip.
But the issue is the PJ1 won't work if it's going to rain. Now, It's not supposed to rain this weekend, so I guess there's a possibility they could go with the PJ1.
I think I really think, Heather, they're probably not going to say a whole lot about it. They're going to look at things as it goes, and they may make a decision, Saturday morning or Saturday noontime or Saturday early afternoon before the Cup race to say, are we going to do this or are we going to do that? What is going to lend us to have the best show? What's going to be the best for competition? What's going to make the track the best? And even that, it's going to be, okay, how do you look at that? What direction you're going to look at that from? I know the first day they're not going to put any sealer down, any track treatment, and what it is right now is what it's going to be for the ARCA race and the truck race. What they do after that, I personally haven't heard a lot of rhetoric about that, and I think they've got, I'm sure they've got PJ1 and the other sealer on hand if they want to, or they can just say, okay, we're just going to leave it alone. Let's put it this way: with no rain, they run an ARCA race, a truck race, an Xfinity race on Thursday, Friday. They get into Saturday. That track is going to be really rubbered up. So that in itself is going to help the tires have better wear, have better duration, and it's probably going to be a whole lot better racing. So I'm just putting that out there. Just, I lobbied for a long time to say, don't put it down before the truck race. And if you do, put down a little bit on the top too, so we have some two-wide racing. I feel like the ARCA race and the truck race will have some two-wide racing and maybe some racing up there, not to the very top, like skidding the wall, but up there in that top groove. And I think you'll see better racing. I think you'll see passing. I think you'll see the lap cars will be able to get out of the way, and people will have a lot of room to move around. I think it'll adhere better for better racing and better entertainment for that. We'll see how it bodes for the rest of the weekend.
So this is your track. This is your place.
Oh, I love it.
What is the key to conquering the last great Coliseum?
It's very hard because as a crew chief, I go through my mind all the time in preparing for Bristol. It's like it is really hard to balance good turning ability, front end turning ability in the middle of the corner, because it's a high bank turn, it's a very sharp turn, and the vehicle, truck, car, whatever you got, wants to go straight ahead. It wants to go up that banking, okay? You got to do a lot you got to make sure that thing will turn, that the driver can get the wheel turn and get it pointed to come off the corner. The opposite of that is if you do too much of that back before you get there, getting in the corner over that little roller coaster bump, getting in the corner from a flatter straightaway to a high bank corner, the back end will get very loose. Okay, you need rear stability also, so there's a balance there. That's the same with all tracks. It's just a little harder here because you're going a lot faster than any other half-mile track, period, even close, and you've got that high banking. That's something you don't deal with at other tracks. So there's a lot of speed there. Lap times roll off very quick. 15 seconds. 30 laps go by in 15 minutes, and that's just a blink of an eye, and things happen fast, and if you miss it, you can get down a lap or get way back in traffic pretty quick. And then there's that thing of trying to dodge everybody else, dodge the carnage, try to keep your vehicle clean, keep the fenders on it. The time of like, okay, I can knock the front end off this thing and just beat the body off of it and still be just as good at the end of the race. That's no more. I mean, things are too aero dependent now, and you just can't do that and expect to win the race. So that's up to the driver. That's not mine. Thank goodness.
So first of all, Austin, thank you for spending your time with me this afternoon to talk about the upcoming races. I guess I want to start with this. You guys are in a great position going into Bristol. What's your confidence level? What is kind of your attitude as you go to this cutoff race? What are you trying to do here?
Yeah, I think obviously number one goal is advance, right? If we can get ourselves in a position to where after the first two stages that we're locked into the next round, I think that's best case scenario. Regardless of what happens in the race. I think we did the math. I mean, if I finish 20th, no matter what happens, I'm in. So that still requires plenty of execution and plenty of things to go correct and not have any issues throughout the race. So with it being a bit of a wild card weekend, a lot of unknowns. Just with the track itself and the tires and how things are going to play out, and then just kind of the nature of the beast itself. Bristol is definitely not going to be an easy weekend for anybody, top to bottom, playoffs or not. So I think for us, it's just same approach as it's been the last 2 weeks. Just take it one race at a time and just go run the race.
How worried are you about tires at Bristol?
I think obviously the spring race took everyone by surprise. I think the entire industry. So understanding, are we gonna see that again? Are we not going to? A lot of the decisions that would go into that kind of happened today on Wednesday, whereas the how do I drive? What does it change about the race? I think that all kind of evolves in real time. I feel like there's things that I can key off of or trigger off of for practice and qualifying to kind of understand, okay, this is a lot more of what it looked like in the spring. Okay, this is maybe more normal of what we've seen in Bristol before. Like, for example, like the track took zero rubber. It just, there's just marbles everywhere instead. So I think that's kind of the first tell all for everybody on what this tire is going to do.
It seems like this time of year is Penske Racing's time of year. I mean, this team just comes alive when the playoff starts. I mean, obviously that's on purpose, but why do you think that the way that you guys approach things seems to pay off so much when you guys get to the postseason?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it's something we kind of talk about as a team as well. I mean, some of it obviously still comes down to execution. I mean, at the end of the day, that's more of why we're at in points right now in this round. But as far as being able to come on strong, I mean, that's when you want to, right? I mean, if you can plan it and time it all out, whether if that's things you're wanting to do with the cars or just you're just all in regardless. It's hard to say. I mean, you see different times of the season where other teams are strong as well. I mean, there's the beginning of the year, this organization looked really good. Middle of the year, you think these guys are unbeatable for the rest of the season, and it kind of comes in waves. And I'm not necessarily thinking that they were like out here dominating, but I think we're bringing really fast race cars. We're bringing really consistent efforts, and I think that's where we look so strong right now. It's not even just due to the performance; it's just been due to the execution.
When you were going around on media day for the playoffs, I asked you about all the wild cards, quote unquote wild cards of playoffs, and you told me the media is just going to have to get used to this is the way it is. And you're right. I mean, it absolutely is played out that way in the playoffs. Why do you think that is, though? Why has there been such a change even from the first year of the next gen, right? I mean, we had wild cards in the playoffs, but then when they got to the playoffs, they didn't really do anything. But each year, more and more people have been able to mix things up in the playoff round. So why is that?
It's hard to say. I mean, from a schedule standpoint, I love the variety. I think you have to have the variety in our playoffs because that's what our season is. Our season has a complete variety of different styles of racetracks, and it rewards a different style of driver. And to have a complete champion in NASCAR, you at least have to be good at every type of racetrack. And to make it through the playoffs, you have to be good at every type of racetrack. So I think that suits the narrative of a championship format. But as far as why they get so crazy, I mean, you get Watkins Glen. It's a track that NASCAR's raced on for decades and a track that is very difficult to pass. So it's not like we're having side-by-side racing all the time, and yet still we have, every caution is caused by a playoff driver. I think that comes down to the human element, no different than Darlington and the Southern 500, right? When that track was in the playoffs, and it's just tough. It's a tough situation. It's a pressure cooker environment with the playoffs, and I think you could make any race look like a wild card race. To be honest, I mean, there's very few, quote unquote normal races, if you will, in the playoffs. I mean, you probably look at Kansas and Vegas as the two only normal races that exist in the entirety of the playoff format until Phoenix. So with that being said, you have to be used to, everything being so different and so much variety.
What's been the biggest, I guess, change or how the light bulb come on for you this year? Because obviously you came out one as a rookie at the Daytona 500, amazing. But I mean, being a rookie is hard. But this year you've been able to find like the consistency and the wins at not the, restrictor plate races or whatever, and really kind of made yourself a player in these playoffs. So where did the light bulb come on?
Well, I think it comes in a lot of different ways. I mean, this round looks great, and I hope for the same for, if we're in the round of 12, round of 8, and so on. But it really comes down to execution first and foremost, and I think execution's a people element. You can't say that, unless it's a failed part on your race car. Execution comes down to all the people, whether if that's me driving the car, my guys changing the tires, my guys making setup decisions, all of those things. That's all the people element. And I really, really enjoy working with the people that I'm working with. And I believe in a lot of the people that I'm working with, albeit, a lot of them, it's their first time like in the playoffs and in the role that they're in. And I think that's great. And I really love where we're at as a team, and it's kind of been a build up throughout the year. But that's where that comes into value is your relationship and the people around you. I talk about playoffs being a pressure cooker and all these different types of things, but if you believe in the person you're standing beside with, it's an instant calming factor for all involved. So I would say that's probably number one for me. And number two, we've brought fast cars the first two races. Fast cars are you have a much bigger window of what you can do, whether if it's as a driver, as a crew chief with strategy. I think fast cars solve a lot of problems, but my guys have done great job with the challenges of each event in the first two, and hope to see that continue.
So this little Zoom media tour is sponsored by Charlotte, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask a question about that track. The Roval's reconfigured for this year. How much of a challenge is that going to be for drivers going in there when the first time you're going to really have a chance to be on this reconfigured track as practice?
It'll be a challenge for sure. I mean, the majority of the layout's the same. You know, actually it's eliminated my least favorite corner, so I'm a huge fan of this decision. I hated turn 8. God, I hated it. So now it's going to be a bit of a hairpin, which will be interesting, and nothing that really separates like side-by-side racing up until that hairpin. So I'd imagine, quite a bit of racing, quite a bit more of an opportunity to pass into that zone, pretty wide and inviting from what it looks like. I haven't taken a lap or really even seen it on a simulator, but everything I've seen on paper definitely looks to be the case. And then kind of the way they reshape the front stretch chicane, I think will kind of affect restarts more than anything else. But all in all, it should be fun. Like I said, I'm just glad they got rid of the old turn 8.
You're such a good road course racer too. Did that give you confidence going into this playoffs because you had Watkins Glen and you have the Charlotte Roval that if you were in need of a good performance, you could find one because you have such a road racing or road course racing background?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but like there is a comfort level for me at those types of tracks that probably makes it easier for me to execute and put a race together than maybe somebody who wouldn't. Whether if those are guys that are in the playoffs or not. So having a speedway and a road course in both the first 2 rounds, I do think suits the strengths of me and my team. So I certainly welcome it, and but it's still just as crazy at that place as any of the rest of them.
For my final thought today, I want to talk about the NASCAR playoffs because I really need some of you all to take your playoff slander elsewhere. I don't care who you are. This playoffs, this regular season, this playoffs has been so compelling. You never know who's going to win. You never know who's going to be competitive. I mean, a lot of people were kind of trash talking the playoff field because Austin Cindric and Daniel Suarez and Chase Briscoe and Harrison Burton even. And Harrison Burton is the furthest guy out of the playoffs. He's only 20 points back coming into Bristol. You can make that up in the stage if things fall your way. Meanwhile, Cindric, Briscoe, Suarez have all had outstanding first rounds of the playoffs, better than a lot of the guys that are expected in the postseason. It's time to admit that these cars have exposed one thing about NASCAR, and that is the drivers are all pretty darn good. Even the guys you think of as a scrub riding around in 32nd place all the time, the way the cars have been evened out, that guy's actually a really good driver too. He just didn't have great equipment up until the next gen era. And I, for one, love it. It allows us to really see who can drive, who can get up on the wheel. And sure, Harrison Burton being in the playoffs is lucky. And sure, he's probably not going to advance out of the first round, but he certainly has held his own as a guy who was 32nd in points 3 weeks ago. So I want you to take that playoff slander. I want you to sell it somewhere else because I'm not buying it. Even when guys not in the playoffs are racing, Shane Van Gisbergen and Chris Buescher at the end of that race last week at Watkins Glen, they're not racing for anything but the trophy and a check. And it was still unbelievable racing. So thank you, NASCAR, for giving us that and not giving us all these years where the championship was decided 2 weeks before the final race. I'll take this anytime. Thanks for joining us on the Backstretch. See you next week.